Hey there, my tired little friends. I hope the night has slowed down enough for you to finally breathe a bit easier. Tonight we're turning our attention to something wonderfully quiet and hard-working. The kidneys and the urinary system, gently filtering, balancing, and keeping the body calm behind the scenes, moment after moment. It's a story about rhythm, patience, and small processes that never ask for attention, yet make rest possible. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe, leave a like, and tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, settle in, let your body grow heavy, and let's begin. There are parts of you that work without announcement, maintaining balance while you think of other things. Tonight we'll drift through the quiet world of the kidneys and urinary system, not to learn or remember, but simply to rest in the knowledge that these systems have been caring for you all along, asking nothing in return. Somewhere behind your lowest ribs, tucked against the muscles of your back, two organs the size of your fists have been working since before you were born. They sit outside the main cavity of your abdomen, cushioned by fat, held in place by connective tissue that asks nothing of your attention. You have never felt them shift or pulse. You have never needed to remind them of their purpose. They simply continue, hour after hour, maintaining an equilibrium so subtle that its presence registers only as the absence of disruption. Your kidneys do not announce themselves. They do not send signals when they succeed, only when something has gone profoundly wrong, which for most people, most days, never happens. This silence is not neglect. It is the sound of a system so thoroughly adapted to its role that effort has become indistinguishable from rest. While you sleep, while you read, while you sit in traffic or stand in line, these two organs are filtering your blood, removing what no longer serves you and returning what does. The process takes no conscious instruction. It requires no oversight. It unfolds with the same steady rhythm whether you are aware of it or not. The balance they maintain is not dramatic. It does not swing wildly or require heroic correction. Instead, it operates within margins so narrow that your cells never notice the adjustments. Sodium levels, potassium levels, the acidity of your blood, and the concentration of dozens of dissolved substances are all held within ranges measured in fractions. And yet this precision does not come from vigilance. It comes from a design that favours gradual response over sudden reaction, that trusts repetition over innovation, that has learned across millions of years that the body thrives not on alertness, but on constancy. You do not need to manage this balance. You do not need to calculate or compensate. The system that maintains it has been refining its methods since long before your species walked upright, long before your ancestors needed to understand what balance even meant. It is older than language, older than thought, older than the part of your brain that worries about whether things are working as they should. And it continues now, as it always has, without asking for your approval or your concern. Each kidney holds roughly 1 million tiny filtering units, structures so small they cannot be seen without magnification, yet collectively capable of processing all the blood in your body many times each day. They do not rush. They do not prioritize. They simply accept what arrives, separate what matters from what does not, and send each portion where it belongs. The waste moves toward removal. The essentials return to circulation. Nothing is lost that can still be used. Nothing is kept that has outlived its purpose. This is not efficiency in the modern sense, where speed and optimization govern every process. This is efficiency in the older sense, where the goal is not to finish quickly, but to continue indefinitely. The kidneys do not compete with themselves or measure their output against yesterday's performance. They do not fatigue in the way muscles do, and do not slow with age in the way joints do. They simply maintain their pace, adjusting only when the conditions around them change, and even then, the adjustments are so gradual that the rest of your body never registers the shift. You have been carrying this capacity for balance since you were small enough to fit in 2 hands. Even then, your kidneys were working, scaled to your size, filtering blood that had only just begun to carry oxygen to newly formed tissues. They grew as you grew, not by conscious direction, but by the same unseen logic that shaped your bones and lengthened your limbs. And when your growth stopped, they did not. They continued their work without pause, without celebration, and without acknowledgement that they had been doing this all along. There is comfort in systems that do not require attention. There is rest in knowing that certain processes will unfold regardless of whether you remember them, regardless of whether you understand them, and regardless of whether you have the energy to think about them at all. The kidneys offer this kind of rest. They are proof that not everything in your life needs your participation. Some things simply happen, have always happened, and will continue to happen while you turn your mind to other concerns or let your mind go quiet entirely. The position of the kidneys in your body is itself a kind of protection. They rest against the back wall of the abdomen, behind the organs that digest food, behind the stomach and intestines and liver. They are cushioned by a layer of fat that absorbs the small movements of breathing, the shifts of posture, and the gentle pressure that comes from lying down or standing up. This cushioning keeps them stable and keeps them from being jostled by the everyday movements of your life. They rest there, quiet and still, doing their work in a space that rarely changes, that offers them the consistency they need to maintain their rhythm. The blood vessels that serve the kidneys are short and wide, designed to carry large volumes without resistance. These vessels branch directly from the aorta, the main artery that carries blood away from your heart, and they return to the vena cava, the main vein that carries blood back. This direct connection means that the kidneys receive blood at full pressure, blood that has not yet been diluted by passage through other organs, and blood that carries the full concentration of everything the heart has just pumped. And they process this blood immediately, without delay, without waiting for it to accumulate or gather. The kidneys work in parallel, not in sequence. If you have 2 functioning kidneys, they share the load equally, each one filtering roughly half the blood that arrives, each one producing roughly half the urine that will eventually be released. This parallel processing means that neither kidney is ever overwhelmed or ever asked to do more than it was designed to do, and it means that if one kidney slows or struggles, the other can often compensate, increasing its output slightly to maintain the total filtration rate the body needs. This compensation happens automatically. There is no signal that travels from one kidney to the other, no communication that coordinates their efforts. They simply respond independently to the same conditions, the same blood pressure, the same hormone levels, and the same chemical concentrations. And because they are responding to the same inputs, their outputs remain balanced without requiring any central control. This is not intelligence. This is not cooperation. This is simply the result of identical systems operating under identical conditions, producing identical results through identical methods. Tonight, as you settle into stillness, your kidneys are filtering. Tomorrow morning, when you wake, they will still be filtering. In the years ahead, through seasons and changes and all the shifts that life brings, they will continue this work, asking nothing, expecting nothing, simply maintaining the balance that allows everything else to function. This is not a miracle. This is not a metaphor. This is simply what they do, what they have always done, and what their structure and position and blood supply ensure they will continue doing for as long as the body that houses them continues to live. The work of balancing is invisible. You cannot see your sodium levels rising or falling. You cannot feel your blood becoming more acidic or more alkaline. You cannot sense the gradual accumulation of waste products or their equally gradual removal. All of this happens in a realm that exists beyond your perception, beyond your control, beyond anything except the quiet competence of systems that have been refined across so many generations that refinement itself has become their nature, and so you are free. Free to think about other things. Free to let your mind wander or settle. Free to drift towards sleep knowing that the balancing will continue, that the filtering will continue, and that the quiet work of maintaining your internal environment will proceed exactly as it has proceeded every moment of your life, without fanfare, without interruption, and without needing you to do anything except continue being alive. The blood that moves through your kidneys does not arrive in a rush. It comes steadily, at a pace set by your heartbeat, which itself has settled into a rhythm determined by your level of rest. Right now, as you read these words or listen to them spoken, roughly 1/5 of all the blood your heart pumps is moving through the vessels that supply your kidneys. This proportion does not change much. It does not spike with excitement or drop with boredom. It simply continues. A constant fraction of a constant flow, reliable in the way that tides are reliable, in the way that seasons are reliable. Inside each kidney, the blood arrives at structures so small they exist only as ideas unless magnified many times over. These are the filtering units, each one a coiled tube wrapped around a bundle of tiny blood vessels, and together they form a network of almost unimaginable complexity. Yet complexity here does not mean fragility. It means redundancy. It means that if some units slow down or stop, others continue. It means that the system was built with margins so wide that most people never come close to testing them. The filtering itself is not violent. It is not a straining or a squeezing. It is a passive process, driven by pressure that is barely higher than the pressure in your veins. Blood flows past a membrane, and certain substances pass through while others do not. Water passes through. Salt passes through. Waste products pass through. But the larger elements, the proteins and blood cells that your body still needs, remain in circulation. This separation happens not because anything is actively sorting, but because the membrane itself is a filter, its tiny pores allowing only certain sizes to cross. What passes through is not yet waste. It is a rough draft, a mixture of substances that includes both what you need and what you do not. And so the fluid that has crossed into the tubule begins a slow journey through a series of winding passages, each section designed to reclaim something specific. Sodium is reabsorbed here, water is reclaimed there. Glucose, if any is present, is pulled back into the bloodstream almost immediately, because the body does not waste sugar unless it has far more than it can use. Even then, the loss is not careless. It is simply the overflow of abundance. The journey through the tubule is not fast. The fluid does not race toward an exit. It drifts, molecule by molecule, while the cells lining the tubule decide what to take back and what to leave behind. These cells do not think. They respond to signals, chemical gradients, and the presence or absence of hormones that travel through the bloodstream like whispered instructions. And because these instructions change gradually, the responses change gradually too. There is no sudden shift, no moment of crisis, just a slow, continuous adjustment that keeps the body's internal environment stable even as the external environment shifts. By the time the fluid reaches the end of the tubule, it has been transformed. Most of the water has been reabsorbed. Most of the salts have been reclaimed. What remains is a concentrated solution of waste products, things your body has finished with, and byproducts of metabolism that cannot be reused. This fluid, now properly called urine, moves into a collecting system that channels it away from the kidney and toward a storage space where it will wait without urgency until you are ready to release it. The kidneys do not hurry this process. They do not prioritize one task over another. They simply work through the steps in order, over and over, with each beat of your heart delivering another small volume of blood to be filtered, another small volume of waste to be removed. And because this process is continuous, because it does not stop for meals or sleep or weekends, the kidneys never face a backlog. There is no accumulation, no build-up, and no moment when the system must catch up. It is always caught up, always current, always exactly where it needs to be. You do not feel this filtering. You do not sense the blood moving through the vessels or the fluid moving through the tubules. There is no sensation tied to the reclamation of sodium or the excretion of urea. The entire process unfolds in silence, in darkness, in a part of your body you cannot see and have likely never thought about for more than a few moments at a time. And yet it continues, reliable and unhurried, requiring nothing from you but the blood that your heart is already pumping, the water you are already drinking, and the food you are already eating. This is filtering without drama. This is cleaning without effort. This is the body taking care of itself in the same way it has always taken care of itself, with methods so old and so reliable that they require no improvement, no innovation, and no conscious participation. You are free to think of other things. You are free to think of nothing at all. The filtering will continue either way. The membranes that perform this initial filtering are remarkably selective despite their simplicity. They do not contain machinery or moving parts. They are simply barriers with holes of a certain size, and yet that simple structure is enough to separate your blood into components with extraordinary precision. The proteins that your immune system needs remain in your bloodstream. The albumin that maintains blood pressure stays where it belongs. The red blood cells that carry oxygen continue their circulation. Only the smaller molecules pass through. Only the substances that can fit through openings measured in billionths of a meter. This selectivity happens billions of times each day. Every filtering unit processes fluid continuously, and every processing event involves countless individual molecules finding their way through or being turned back. And yet the system never tires of this sorting. It never becomes less precise or less reliable. It simply continues, accepting each molecule that arrives, allowing passage or denying it based on nothing more than size and charge, sending each substance to its proper destination through through mechanisms that require no thought and no guidance. The tubules that receive the filtered fluid are lined with cells that are themselves covered in tiny projections, structures that increase the surface area available for reabsorption. These projections are too small to see, but their effect is not. They allow the cells to reclaim water and salts much more efficiently than they could with smooth surfaces, and much more quickly than would otherwise be possible. And yet, even with this efficiency, the process remains unhurried. The fluid moves through the tubule at a pace that allows every section to do its work and that ensures nothing is missed or overlooked. Different sections of the tubule have different responsibilities. The first section reclaims most of the sodium and most of the water. The next section fine-tunes the balance, adjusting for the specific conditions your body is experiencing at that moment. The final section makes the last adjustments, responding to hormones that tell it whether to conserve water or release it, whether to hold on to salt or let it go. And each section performs its role without needing to know what the other sections are doing, without requiring coordination or communication, simply by responding to the local conditions it encounters. The hormones that guide these adjustments come from elsewhere in your body. One comes from the pituitary gland at the base of your brain. Another comes from the adrenal glands that sit atop your kidneys. These hormones travel through your bloodstream, reaching the tubule cells and binding to receptors that trigger changes in how those cells behave. More water is reabsorbed when one hormone is present. More sodium is reclaimed when another appears. The tubule cells do not decide when to respond. They simply respond when the signal arrives, changing their behavior to match the needs of the moment. This hormonal control means that your kidneys can adapt to changing conditions without your awareness. If you eat a salty meal, hormones will signal the tubules to excrete more sodium. If you become dehydrated, hormones will signal them to conserve water. If your blood pressure drops, hormones will trigger changes that help restore it. And all of this happens automatically, guided by feedback loops that monitor your internal environment and adjust kidney function to maintain stability. The feedback loops themselves are ancient. They evolved long before humans existed, long before mammals walked the earth, at a time when the first creatures with kidneys were learning to survive in environments that varied in ways their bodies could not ignore. Those early feedback loops have been refined over countless generations, becoming more precise, more responsive, and more capable of maintaining stability across a wider range of conditions. But their basic structure remains the same. They monitor, they compare, and they adjust. And then they monitor again, creating a continuous cycle of observation and response that never ends. Your kidneys are participating in these cycles right now. They are monitoring the concentration of sodium in your blood, the level of potassium, the acidity, and the volume. They are comparing what they find to what should be there to the narrow ranges that your cells depend on. And they are adjusting their reabsorption rates, their excretion rates, and their response to hormones, all to keep those measurements within range. This is not conscious work. This is not deliberate. This is simply what happens when monitoring systems are connected to adjustment systems, when feedback creates a loop that closes on itself. The filtering continues, moment by moment, heartbeat by heartbeat. The blood arrives, the membrane separates, the tubules reclaim, and the waste departs. The cycle repeats so many times each day that the number becomes meaningless. What matters is not the count but the consistency, Not the speed, but the steadiness. Not the complexity, but the reliability. And the kidneys offer all of these things without being asked, without being thanked, and without any expectation that you will notice or care that they have been working all along. Water moves through you in patterns. You drink when you are thirsty, or when habit suggests it, or when the glass is already in your hand. The water enters your stomach, passes into your intestines, crosses into your bloodstream, and from there it travels everywhere, carrying nutrients, dissolving waste, and filling the spaces between cells. And as it travels, the kidneys watch, not with eyes, not with intention, but with sensors that respond to concentration, to volume, and to the subtle chemical markers that indicate whether you have too much water or too little. When you have more water than you need, the kidneys let it go. They reduce the reabsorption of fluid from the tubules, allowing more to pass through into the collecting system and eventually into the bladder. This happens without your input. You do not decide to dilute your urine. You do not instruct your kidneys to hold less water. The system simply responds to the conditions it detects, adjusting its behavior to match the abundance or scarcity of the moment. When you have less water than you need, the kidneys hold on. They increase reabsorption, pulling water back into the bloodstream, even from fluid that has already passed through the initial filter. The urine becomes more concentrated, darker, and more efficient. This too happens without your awareness. You might notice the color change if you are paying attention, but the mechanism itself, the hormonal signals and cellular responses that drive the change, all of this unfolds in silence, guided by systems that have been managing water balance since before your species evolved the capacity to feel thirst. The rhythm of drinking and releasing is not rigid. You do not process water at a fixed rate or on a fixed schedule. Instead, the kidneys adapt to your habits, your environment, and your level of activity. On a hot day, when you are sweating, they conserve water. On a cold day, when you are drinking tea, they release it. The balance shifts, but it shifts gradually, with adjustments so small that each one passes unnoticed. You might realize over the course of hours that you have been to the bathroom more or less often than usual, but the individual moments of adjustment remain invisible. There is no urgency in this rhythm. The body does not demand that you drink at specific intervals. It does not punish you for forgetting. It simply adjusts, drawing on reserves when needed, storing excess when available, and maintaining a balance that allows your cells to function without flooding or drying out. And because this balance is maintained continuously, because the kidneys are always watching and always responding, you are free to move through your day without thinking about hydration except in the most general terms. The bladder, which receives the urine the kidneys produce, is itself a study in patience. It is a hollow organ, a muscular sac that stretches as it fills, signalling discomfort only when it has expanded beyond a certain point. Before that point, it simply waits. It does not complain. It does not interrupt. It holds what has been given to it, confident that you will eventually respond to the gentle pressure that indicates fullness. This pressure is not urgent. It does not escalate quickly. It starts as a faint awareness, a subtle sensation that you could ignore if you chose, and only gradually becomes insistent. Even then, the insistence is polite, a reminder rather than a demand. And when you do respond, when you allow the bladder to empty, the process is smooth and controlled, governed by muscles that relax in sequence. by sphincters that open when you will them to, and by a system that has learned to coordinate release with intention. The bladder does not empty completely. It leaves a small residual volume, enough to keep the walls from collapsing against each other, enough to maintain the shape and function of the organ. This is not inefficiency, this is design. It is the body acknowledging that complete emptiness is not the goal, that some baseline of presence is necessary for the system to function over the long term. You have been managing this rhythm all your life, drinking, holding, releasing, drinking again. The pattern is so familiar that you do not think about it unless something disrupts it, unless you are somewhere without access to water or without access to a bathroom. And even then the body adapts. It conserves when it must. It waits when it can. It trusts that the conditions will change, that the rhythm will resume, and that balance will return. The kidneys do not demand perfect conditions. They do not require that you drink exactly the right amount at exactly the right time. They work with what you give them, adjusting their output to match your input, maintaining stability across a wide range of behaviours and circumstances. This flexibility is not a bonus feature, it is the foundation of the system, the reason it has persisted across so many generations, so many environments, and so many different ways of living. The water you drink today will be processed by tonight. Some of it will be absorbed into your tissues and used to fill cells, to lubricate joints, and to form the fluids that bathe your organs. Some of it will be lost through breathing, through the moisture in your breath, and through the gentle evaporation that occurs at your skin. But most of it will pass through your kidneys, be filtered and assessed, and either be returned to your bloodstream or be sent on to become urine. This processing happens at a rate that matches your intake, that responds to how much you drank and when you drank it, and that ensures you never accumulate more water than your body can manage or lose more water than your body can spare. The bladder fills at a rate that depends on kidney output, and kidney output depends on how much water you have and how much you need. This creates a loop, a cycle of cause and effect that maintains itself without requiring your attention. When you drink more, the kidneys produce more urine. When the bladder fills, you eventually empty it. When you empty it, the kidneys begin filling it again. The cycle continues day after day with variations so minor that the overall pattern remains constant. There are days when you drink more than usual, days when you are thirsty, when the weather is warm, and when you have been active and your body has used more water than normal. On these days, the kidneys respond by producing more urine, by allowing more water to pass through the tubules, and by filling the bladder more quickly. And so you release more often, emptying the bladder 3 times, 4 times, or 5 times instead of the usual 2 or 3. This increase does not stress the system. It does not push the kidneys beyond their capacity. It simply represents a shift in the rhythm, a change in output that matches the change in input. There are other days when you drink less, days when you are busy, when you forget to drink, when water is not readily available. On these days, the kidneys respond by producing less urine, by reclaiming more water from the tubules, and by filling the bladder more slowly. And so you release less often, perhaps only once or twice instead of the usual frequency. This decrease also does not stress the system. The kidneys simply adjust, conserving what they can, waiting for conditions to improve. The body trusts this pattern of adjustment. It trusts that you will eventually drink when you need to. It trusts that you will eventually release when the bladder is full. It trusts that the rhythm, though it varies from day to day, will average out over time to something the kidneys can manage comfortably. And this trust is rarely misplaced. Most people, most days, provide their bodies with roughly the right amount of water, neither too much nor too little, allowing the kidneys to work within their comfortable range without needing to conserve aggressively or excrete urgently. Tonight, as you rest, your kidneys are still managing water. They are still producing urine, still filling the bladder, and still maintaining the balance that keeps your blood at the right concentration and your cells at the right hydration. You do not need to monitor this. You do not need to check or measure or adjust. It is happening, as it always happens, in the background of your awareness, steady and unhurried and entirely sufficient. The ureters that carry urine from the kidneys to the bladder are narrow tubes, barely wider than the lead in a pencil. Yet they transport fluid continuously without ever becoming blocked or backed up. They use gentle waves of muscle contraction to push urine along, waves that travel from the kidney to the bladder in a motion that resembles swallowing, that moves the fluid forward without requiring any pressure difference between the two ends. This motion is called peristalsis, and it works the same way in your intestines, in your esophagus, and in any tube in your body that needs to move contents from one place to another. The ureters enter the bladder at an angle, passing through the bladder wall in a way that creates a natural valve. When the bladder is empty, this valve remains open, allowing urine to flow freely. But when the bladder fills and its walls stretch, the pressure closes the valve, preventing urine from flowing backward toward the kidneys. This design is simple but effective, protecting the kidneys from pressure that could damage them, ensuring that urine flows in only one direction, and maintaining the separation between the filtering system and the storage system. The bladder itself is lined with a special tissue that can stretch without tearing and that can expand to several times its resting size without losing its integrity. This tissue is folded when the bladder is empty, creating a wrinkled surface that can unfold as the bladder fills, allowing expansion without requiring the tissue itself to stretch beyond its comfortable limits. And when the bladder empties, the tissue folds again, returning to its resting configuration, ready to expand again when the next filling begins. This cycle of filling and emptying, of stretching and relaxing, occurs thousands of times over the course of a year. And yet the bladder does not wear out, it does not lose its elasticity or its strength. It simply continues, adapting to each filling, accommodating each stretch, and returning to rest after each release. This durability is not accidental. It is the result of tissue that was designed to flex, of cells that can repair small damage as it occurs, and of a structure that favours resilience over rigidity. The body accumulates things, byproducts of metabolism, fragments of broken down proteins, and substances that were useful once but have now outlived their purpose. These remnants do not vanish on their own. They must be collected, transported, and removed. And this removal is the quiet work of the urinary system, a process so undramatic that it happens dozens of times a day without comment or concern. Urea is the most abundant of these waste products, a compound formed when the liver breaks down amino acids that your body cannot use. Urea is not toxic in small amounts, but it is not helpful either. It is simply leftover, a chemical expression of the fact that metabolism is never perfectly efficient. and so it travels through the bloodstream until it reaches the kidneys, where it passes through the filter and into the tubules, and from there into the urine that will carry it away. The removal of urea is not urgent. Your body does not race to expel it. It simply allows it to accumulate in the fluid that is already being processed, adding waste to waste, until the concentration reaches a point where release becomes practical. This is not a crisis. This is not a race against time. This is the body doing what it has always done, taking care of business without fanfare, without applause, and without any expectation that you will notice or care. Other substances join the urea. Creatinine, a byproduct of muscle activity. Uric acid, a remnant of purine breakdown. Small amounts of hormones that have finished their signaling tasks. Traces of medications, if you take any, that have been metabolized and are now ready to leave. The kidneys do not judge these substances. They do not label them as good or bad. They simply recognize what can stay and what must go, and they shepherd the latter toward the exit with the same steady patience they apply to everything else. The act of release, when it finally comes, is voluntary. You choose when to empty the bladder within the limits of its capacity and your circumstances. This choice is a small one, barely worth the word, but it represents a rare moment of conscious participation in a process that is otherwise entirely automatic. You relax the muscles that have been holding the sphincter closed. You allow the bladder to contract, and the urine flows out, carrying with it all the accumulated waste of the hours since the last release. There is no pain in this process, no discomfort unless something has gone wrong. The urethra, the tube that carries urine from the bladder to the outside world, is lined with tissue that does not register the passage of fluid as anything more than a faint awareness of movement. The flow is smooth, controlled by the muscular walls of the bladder, which contract in a wave that moves from top to bottom, ensuring that the organ empties efficiently without needing your conscious direction. Once the urine has left your body, the system resets. The bladder relaxes, the sphincter closes, and the slow process of filling begins again. There is no ceremony to mark this transition. There is no sense of accomplishment or relief beyond the immediate physical sensation of emptiness where fullness used to be. The body simply moves on, returning to the work of filtering and collecting, preparing for the next release whenever it comes. This cycle has repeated itself countless times in your life. It will repeat countless more. And yet it never feels repetitive because it never demands your attention long enough to become tiresome. It is simply there, a rhythm in the background, a process you engage with briefly and then forget until the next time the bladder signals that it is time to release again. The waste that leaves your body is not dangerous. It is not toxic in the amounts the kidneys produce. It is simply no longer useful, and so it must go. This is not rejection. This is not failure. This is the body acknowledging that resources are finite, that not everything can be kept, and that there is value in letting go of what no longer serves. And the urinary system facilitates this letting go with a gentleness that belies the importance of the task. You do not need to help with this removal. You do not need to supplement or support or optimize. The system has its own methods, its own timeline, and its own standards for what constitutes adequate performance. And those standards are not high. They are not demanding. They simply require that waste be removed often enough to prevent accumulation, thoroughly enough to maintain balance, and quietly enough that you can go about your day without thinking about any of it. This is letting go without drama. This is released without urgency. This is the body taking care of itself in the most ordinary way possible, with methods so reliable that they have become invisible, so consistent that they require no oversight, and so deeply embedded in the fabric of your existence that you could not stop them if you tried. The colour of urine tells a story about hydration. Pale yellow means you have plenty of water. Dark yellow means you could use more. But these are not warnings. They are simply information, feedback from a system that is always communicating in the most subtle ways. The kidneys are not scolding you for drinking too little or too much. They are simply adjusting their output to match your input, and the colour is a byproduct of that adjustment, visible evidence of a process that is otherwise entirely internal. The smell of urine also varies with what you eat and drink. Certain foods create distinctive scents. Coffee leaves its mark. Asparagus creates a particular aroma that some people can detect and others cannot. These smells are not signs of something wrong. They are simply the presence of compounds that your body has finished with, compounds that are now leaving through the normal channels. The kidneys do not filter these compounds out of the urine. They allow them to pass, recognizing that they are harmless, that their presence changes nothing about the function of the system. The temperature of urine is close to the temperature of your body. It emerges warm because it has been inside you, because it has been waiting in the bladder, which is itself surrounded by other organs that generate heat. This warmth is not significant. It carries no information. It is simply a reminder that urine is not foreign, not separate, but part of you until the moment it leaves. The volume of urine you produce varies with the season. In summer, when you sweat more, you produce less. In winter, when you sweat less, you produce more. This variation is automatic, driven by the same feedback loops that manage water balance throughout the day. The kidneys do not know what season it is. They only know how much water is leaving your body through other routes, and they adjust their own output accordingly. The frequency of release also varies with age. Children release more often because their bladders are smaller. Older adults may release more often because the bladder becomes less elastic, less able to stretch to its former capacity. But these changes are gradual, unfolding over years, allowing the body time to adapt to new patterns, to adjust expectations, and to accommodate the shifts that come with growing or aging. The bladder can hold roughly 2 cups of urine before it signals fullness. This capacity is not fixed. It can vary depending on how quickly the bladder has filled, on how distracted you are, and on whether you are standing or sitting or lying down. But the range is narrow enough that most people develop a sense of their own patterns, a feeling for how often they need to release under different circumstances. The sphincter that controls release is actually 2 sphincters, one internal and one external. The internal sphincter is involuntary. It remains closed without your conscious effort, relaxing only when the bladder signals that it is time to empty. The external sphincter is voluntary. It is the one you control, the one you can hold closed even when the bladder is full, the one you relax when you decide it is time to release. This dual system gives you control while also providing a backup, ensuring that release does not happen accidentally, even if you are distracted or asleep. The muscles of the pelvic floor support the bladder from below, holding it in position and preventing it from sagging or dropping. These muscles are mostly involuntary, working continuously without your awareness. but they can also be contracted voluntarily, adding additional support when needed, helping to prevent leakage during activities that increase pressure on the bladder. This combination of automatic and voluntary control gives the system flexibility, allowing it to maintain function across a wide range of activities and circumstances. Release typically takes less than a minute. The bladder contracts, the sphincters open, and the urine flows out. The process is efficient, requiring little time, leaving you free to return to whatever you were doing. And once it is complete, the system resets immediately, ready to begin the cycle again without delay, without requiring recovery or rest. Your kidneys prefer routine. They do not need it, but they prefer it. They function best when the inputs are predictable, when the patterns of drinking and eating and sleeping follow a rhythm that allows them to anticipate rather than react. This preference is not conscious. It is not a choice. It is simply the way systems built on gradual adjustment tend to behave, favouring consistency over variation, trusting what has worked before over what might work now. You wake in the morning, and the first thing you might do is visit the bathroom. The bladder has been filling all night slowly as the kidneys continued their work even while you slept. By morning, it is ready to empty, and so you release the urine that has accumulated during the hours of darkness. This pattern is so familiar that you do not think about it. It is simply what happens, morning after morning, a small ritual that requires no planning or decision. After waking, you might drink something: coffee, tea, water, juice. The liquid enters your stomach, passes into your bloodstream, and the kidneys register the increase in fluid volume. They adjust their reabsorption rates, allowing more water to pass through, knowing that you have just provided them with new resources to work with. This adjustment happens quickly, within minutes, but it does not feel quick. It feels like nothing at all, because the kidneys do not announce their adjustments. They simply make them. Throughout the day, you repeat this pattern: drinking, holding, releasing, drinking again. The rhythm varies depending on your activities, your environment, and your level of distraction, but the underlying pattern remains the same. The kidneys filter, the bladder fills, and eventually you respond to the signal that indicates it is time to empty. This cycle is not something you invented. It is something you inherited, a pattern so old that it predates your awareness of it, so reliable that it continues even when you are not paying attention. The body trusts this pattern. It trusts that you will drink when you are thirsty. It trusts that you will release when the bladder is full. It trusts that the balance between input and output will remain roughly stable, that the deviations will be minor, and that the system will not be asked to do anything it has not done many times before. And because the body trusts this, it does not hold reserves for emergencies. It does not prepare for disaster. It simply maintains the balance it has always maintained, confident that the pattern will continue. There is comfort in this trust. There is rest in knowing that the body does not expect perfection, does not demand flawless execution, and does not penalize you for small variations in routine. You can skip a meal without consequence. You can drink more or less water than usual without disrupting the system. The kidneys will adjust. The bladder will hold or release as needed. The balance will persist, not because the system is rigid, but because it is flexible, because it has learned to accommodate variation within the larger pattern. Even your sleep follows a pattern that the kidneys recognize. As you settle into bed, as your breathing slows and your heart rate drops, the kidneys reduce their output slightly. They do not stop working, but they work more conservatively, producing less urine, allowing you to sleep through the night without interruption. This adjustment is hormonal, driven by signals that tell the kidneys to conserve water during the hours when drinking is unlikely. And it works well enough that most people do not wake in the night needing to empty the bladder, at least not until the later years when the system becomes less efficient. Morning comes, and the pattern begins again. The bladder is fuller than it was at bedtime, but not uncomfortably so. The kidneys have been filtering all night, but they have not been filtering at the same rate they do during the day. The balance has shifted, but it has shifted within familiar boundaries, within ranges the body has seen many times before. There is no surprise here. There is no crisis. There is only the continuation of a pattern that has been unfolding for as long as you have been alive. The body trusts familiar patterns because familiar patterns have proven trustworthy. They have carried you through days and nights without incident, without failure, and without requiring your conscious intervention. And this trust extends to the future. The body assumes that tomorrow will look like today, that next week will look like this week, and that the patterns that have worked for years will continue to work for years more. This assumption is not naive. It is the foundation of biological stability, the reason your internal environment remains constant even as the external environment changes. You do not need to create these patterns. You do not need to enforce them. They emerge naturally from the rhythm of your life, from the habits you have formed, and from the routines you follow without thinking. And the kidneys, the bladder, and the entire urinary system, all of it adapts to these patterns, learns them, trusts them, and continues to function within them, asking nothing of you but that you keep living in the way you have always lived. The kidneys track more than just water. They track salt intake, monitoring how much sodium you consume with each meal, adjusting excretion to match consumption. On days when you eat salty foods, they excrete more salt. On days when you eat bland foods, they conserve salt. This tracking happens automatically without your awareness, maintaining sodium balance within narrow ranges despite wide variations in what you eat. They also track potassium, another mineral that must be kept within specific limits. Too much potassium can disrupt heart rhythm. Too little can weaken muscles. And so the kidneys monitor potassium levels continuously, excreting excess when it appears and conserving what remains when intake is low. This monitoring requires no conscious effort. It is simply part of the filtering process, part of the constant assessment that occurs with each pass of blood through the kidneys. The pH of your blood, its acidity or alkalinity, is also maintained by the kidneys. They can excrete acid when your blood becomes too acidic. They can conserve bicarbonate when your blood becomes too alkaline. These adjustments happen gradually, over hours rather than minutes, but they are highly effective, keeping your blood pH within the narrow range that enzymes require to function properly. All of these adjustments, all of this tracking and monitoring and responding occur simultaneously. The kidneys are not choosing one task over another. They are not prioritizing sodium over potassium or water over pH. They are simply processing blood, allowing each substance to be filtered or retained according to the needs of the moment, responding to hormones that integrate information from across the body, maintaining multiple balances at once without any apparent effort. This simultaneous management of multiple variables is remarkable not because it is complex, but because it is so effortless. The kidneys do not struggle to maintain these balances. They do not become overwhelmed by the number of things they must track. They simply respond to each substance according to the same principles, the same basic mechanisms of filtration and reabsorption, scaled and adjusted to match the specific needs of each molecule. The patterns your body trusts are patterns of balance, of moderation, of consistency. The kidneys do not expect you to drink exactly 8 glasses of water each day. They do not require that you eat a specific amount of salt or potassium. They simply expect that your habits will remain relatively stable, that today will not be wildly different from yesterday, and that the ranges you typically operate within will continue to be the ranges you operate within tomorrow. And when those ranges do shift, when you change your diet, or your activity level, or your environment, the kidneys adapt. They learn the new patterns, adjust their responses, and within days have established new baselines that match your new circumstances. This adaptability is not learned behavior. It is built into the system, part of the design that has allowed kidneys to function across countless different environments, different diets, and different ways of living. You do not need to help with this adaptation. You do not need to consciously adjust your kidney function to match new circumstances. The system handles it automatically, responding to the chemical signals that indicate change, modifying its behavior to restore balance, and maintaining the internal stability that allows you to navigate external change without disruption. Sleep does not stop the kidneys. It does not pause the filtering or halt the production of urine. It simply changes the context in which these processes unfold, shifting the body into a mode where conservation takes priority over production, where efficiency becomes more important than speed. The kidneys recognize this shift not through any conscious awareness, but through the hormonal signals that accompany sleep. Signals that tell them to hold on to water more carefully, to filter less aggressively, and to allow the bladder to fill more slowly. As you lie in bed, as your muscles relax and your breathing deepens, blood continues to flow through the kidneys at a rate only slightly slower than it does during the day. The filtering units remain active, accepting blood from the renal arteries, passing it through the membranes that separate waste from essentials, and sending the cleaned blood back into circulation. This process does not require wakefulness. It does not require thought. It simply continues, as it has continued every night of your life, as it will continue every night ahead. The urine that forms during sleep is more concentrated than the urine that forms during the day. This concentration reflects the kidney's response to the absence of drinking, their recognition that water is not being replenished and must therefore be conserved. The tubules reabsorb more water, leaving less behind to dilute the waste products. The result is a smaller volume of urine, darker in colour, and more efficient in its use of the water the body still has. This is not a compromise. This is optimization. The kidneys doing exactly what they are designed to do when conditions change. The bladder fills slowly during the night. The sphincter that guards its exit remains closed, held in place by muscles that do not tire, by a system that has learned to maintain tension for hours without conscious effort. You do not feel this holding. You do not sense the gradual accumulation of fluid in the hollow space behind your pubic bone. The bladder simply waits, stretching slightly as it fills, preparing for the morning release that will empty it again. For most people, this waiting lasts all night. The bladder does not signal fullness until dawn is near, until the body has begun to stir, until wakefulness is close enough that interruption becomes unlikely. This timing is not coincidental. It is the result of centuries of adaptation, of bodies learning to coordinate sleep with the capacity of the bladder, of kidneys learning to reduce output during the hours when drinking is not possible. The system has found a balance that allows rest without interruption and that preserves both sleep and the continuous work of waste removal. There are nights when the balance shifts, nights when you drink more water than usual before bed, nights when the temperature is cold and the body conserves less aggressively, nights when age or habit or circumstance means that the bladder fills faster than the sphincter can hold comfortably. On these nights, you might wake to the signal that it is time to release, and so you rise, half aware, and make your way to the bathroom in darkness or dim light. The release is brief. The return to bed is quick. And within moments you are back asleep, the interruption already fading from memory. Even during these interruptions, the kidneys do not stop. They do not pause their work while you are awake or speed it up while you are asleep. They maintain the same steady rhythm, the same patient filtering, and the same gradual production of urine. The only thing that changes is your awareness of it, your brief participation in the process of release, and your momentary acknowledgement that the system has been working all along, even while you are not thinking about it. The heart beats more slowly during sleep, and so the blood moves more slowly through the kidneys. But the filtering does not slow proportionally. The kidneys compensate, adjusting the reabsorption rates to maintain output within acceptable ranges, ensuring that waste removal continues even when the body is at rest. This compensation is automatic, driven by the same hormonal signals that govern water retention, by the same feedback loops that have been managing kidney function since you were young. Morning comes and the kidneys shift again. They recognize the return of wakefulness through the changes in hormone levels, through the increase in blood pressure, and through the subtle cues that indicate the body is no longer at rest. They begin to filter more aggressively to produce more urine to prepare for the first drinking of the day and the cycle that will unfold again. This shift is gradual, unfolding over minutes rather than seconds, but it is also inevitable, a transition the body makes every morning without needing your input or your approval. You do not need to manage this transition. You do not need to wake the kidneys or start the filtering or activate the systems that have been dormant. They were never dormant. They were simply working in a different mode, a quieter mode, a mode suited to the stillness of sleep rather than the activity of waking. And now they shift back, returning to the rhythm of the day, ready to handle whatever you give them, ready to continue the work they have been doing all night, all your life, without pause or complaint. The hormone that regulates nighttime water conservation is released from the pituitary gland in response to signals that indicate you are preparing for sleep. This hormone travels through the bloodstream to the kidneys, where it binds to receptors on the tubule cells, triggering changes that increase water reabsorption. The effect is not immediate. It takes time for the hormone to reach the kidneys, time for the receptors to respond, and time for the changes to propagate through the system. But by the time you are deeply asleep, the effect is fully established, and the kidneys are conserving water as effectively as they can. This hormone level remains elevated throughout the night, gradually declining as morning approaches. The decline is not sudden. It follows the same slow curve as the rise, allowing the kidneys time to adjust and time to shift back toward their daytime mode of operation. By the time you wake, the hormone level has dropped enough that the kidneys are ready to resume normal filtration, ready to handle the water you will drink with breakfast, and ready to begin the daily cycle again. The bladder's capacity to hold urine increases slightly during sleep. The walls become more relaxed, more willing to stretch, and more tolerant of pressure. This increased capacity is subtle, measured in ounces rather than cups, but it is enough to make a difference. Enough to allow the bladder to hold a full night's production without signalling discomfort. And this relaxation is not conscious. It is not something you control. It is simply the bladder responding to the same signals that tell the rest of your body to rest, to conserve energy, and to prepare for hours of stillness. The muscles of the pelvic floor also relax during sleep, but not completely. They maintain enough tension to support the bladder, to prevent leakage, and to keep the sphincters closed. This partial relaxation is a balance, a compromise between the need for rest and the need for control. And it works remarkably well, allowing most people to sleep through the night without incident, without interruption, and without any awareness that their pelvic floor muscles have been working all along. The position you sleep in affects how the bladder fills. Lying on your back allows the bladder to expand evenly in all directions. Lying on your side compresses the bladder slightly, making it feel fuller than it actually is. But these differences are minor, rarely enough to wake you, rarely enough to disrupt sleep. The bladder adapts to each position, stretching in the directions that are available, maintaining its function regardless of how your body is oriented. Your breathing during sleep creates gentle changes in abdominal pressure, subtle rhythms that affect all the organs in your abdomen, including the kidneys and bladder. But these pressure changes are too small to interfere with kidney function and too brief to affect bladder filling. They are simply part of the background, part of the continuous movement that characterizes even the stillest rest. The kidneys filter roughly 40 to 50 gallons of blood each day. During the 8 hours you sleep, they filter roughly 15 gallons, processing a volume that would fill a large trash can if you could somehow collect it. Yet from this large volume, they produce only a small amount of urine, reclaiming almost everything that was initially filtered and returning it to your bloodstream where it belongs. This efficiency is the key to kidney function, the reason they can process so much blood while producing so little waste. The urinary system was not designed for crisis. It was designed for continuity, for the long, slow work of maintaining balance across years and decades, for the patient accumulation and removal of waste in amounts so small that they never threaten, never overwhelm, and never demand immediate response. This is not a system built for emergencies. This is a system built for the everyday, for the ordinary, for the kind of stability that allows everything else in the body to function without worrying about whether the internal environment is drifting out of range. The kidneys do not have the drama of the heart or the urgency of the lungs. They do not respond to danger with a surge of activity. They do not slow with rest in the way that muscles do. They simply continue at their own pace, a pace determined not by external events, but by the constant need to filter blood, to remove waste, and to maintain the concentrations of sodium and potassium and calcium and all the other dissolved substances that cells depend on. This pace is not fast, but it is sufficient, and sufficiency has always been enough. The design of the kidney is ancient. The basic structure, the filtering units wrapped around blood vessels, and the tubules that reclaim what can be used, all of this has existed in some form for hundreds of millions of years, long before mammals walked on land and long before anything resembling a human body took shape. And the reason this design has persisted is not because it is perfect, but because it is good enough, reliable enough, and flexible enough to adapt to a wide range of environments, diets, and ways of living. You inherited these kidneys from ancestors who lived in different climates, ate different foods, and faced different challenges. And yet the basic function remained the same. Filter the blood, remove the waste, maintain the balance. The details varied, the efficiency improved, the capacity expanded, but the core task never changed. And because the task never changed, the design never needed to change either. It simply refined itself, generation after generation, until it reached the form you carry now. A form that is neither new nor old, but simply continuous. The bladder, too, reflects this preference for balance over urgency. It is not a large organ. It does not hold vast quantities, but it holds enough to allow you to move through your day without constant interruption, to sleep through the night without waking, and to participate in activities that take hours without needing to stop. This capacity is not accidental. It is the result of a design that prioritized convenience over efficiency, that recognized that the value of the urinary system lies not in how quickly it removes waste, but in how seamlessly it fits into the rest of your life. The system is redundant in ways that matter. If one kidney fails, the other can often manage the work alone, at least for a time. If some filtering units slow down or stop, others continue. If the bladder is damaged, the ureters can still carry urine, and the kidneys can still produce it. This redundancy is not wasteful. It is insurance, a recognition that bodies age, that injuries happen, that not everything works perfectly all the time. And because the system was built with margins, with capacity beyond what is strictly necessary, it can continue functioning even when parts of it are compromised. You do not need to protect these margins. You do not need to preserve the capacity beyond what is already being preserved. The kidneys will continue to filter for as long as they are able, and the bladder will continue to hold for as long as it is asked. The system does not depend on your vigilance or your care beyond the basic habits of drinking water and allowing release when needed. It simply depends on continuation, on the passage of time, on the fact that tomorrow you will wake, and the day after that you will wake, and the system will still be there, still working, still maintaining the balance that makes waking possible. There is something deeply restful in systems that favour balance. They do not ask for peak performance. They do not demand optimization. They simply ask that you keep living, keep drinking, and keep allowing the body to do what it has always done. And in return, they offer stability, the kind of stability that does not announce itself, that does not require acknowledgement, that simply exists as the foundation upon which everything else is built. The kidneys filter your blood right now as you finish reading these words or as you drift towards sleep. They will filter your blood tomorrow and the day after and all the days that follow. This is not a promise. This is not a guarantee. This is simply what they do, what they have always done, and what their design ensures they will continue to do for as long as the design holds. And holding has always been their strength, their quiet persistence, their refusal to be rushed or hurried or distracted from the work that only they can do. You do not need to think about this work. You do not need to remember it or honour it or even acknowledge it. It will continue regardless. The balance will persist. The waste will be removed. The water will be managed. And you will move through your days unaware of the countless small adjustments, the gradual corrections, and the patient maintenance that makes movement possible, that makes thought possible, and that makes rest possible. This is a design that favours balance, and balance has always favoured rest. Not the kind of rest that comes from stopping, but the kind of rest that comes from knowing that certain things will continue whether you watch them or not. The kidneys offer this rest. They offer the freedom to turn your attention elsewhere, to let your mind go quiet, to drift into sleep, knowing that the systems that keep you stable will keep working through the night, through the weeks, through all the time ahead. The filtering continues, the balance holds, and you are free for this moment and all the moments that follow to simply rest in that knowledge, to let it settle around you like a weight that does not burden but steadies, like a rhythm you do not need to count to trust. The body knows what it is doing. It has always known, and it will continue knowing, quietly, patiently, without asking for anything in return. The kidneys are shaped like beans, curved and smooth, each one about the size of your fist. This shape is not decorative. It reflects the arrangement of internal structures, the way the blood vessels enter and exit, and the way the filtering units are organised around a central collecting space. The shape has remained stable across millions of years because it works, because it allows the kidney to pack maximum filtering capacity into minimum space, and because it creates a structure that is both efficient and resilient. The blood vessels that supply the kidneys are among the largest in the body relative to organ size. This reflects the enormous volume of blood that must be processed and the continuous flow that keeps the filtering units working. These vessels are also among the most carefully regulated, with sensors that monitor pressure and adjust resistance to ensure that blood arrives at the kidneys with exactly the force needed for filtration. Too much pressure would damage the delicate membranes. Too little would reduce filtration efficiency. The regulation is precise, automatic, and entirely unconscious. The location of the kidneys in your back, behind the digestive organs, protects them from impact. They are cushioned not only by fat, but also by the muscles of your back, by the lower ribs that arch over them, and by the other organs that surround them. This protection is necessary because the kidneys, despite their importance, are vulnerable. The filtering membranes are delicate. The tubules are fragile. The blood vessels can be damaged by sudden pressure, and so the body has placed them where they are least likely to be injured, where they can work undisturbed, and where they can maintain their steady rhythm without interference. The waste products the kidneys remove are the same waste products that all cells produce. Every cell in your body breaks down nutrients for energy, and every breakdown creates byproducts. Most of these byproducts are useful. They can be recycled, reused, or converted into something the body needs, but some cannot. Some are simply leftovers, chemical structures that serve no purpose, that cannot be stored safely, that must be removed. And the kidneys remove them, accepting the waste from millions of cells, concentrating it and preparing it for excretion. This removal is not selective in the sense of targeting specific cells or specific waste. The kidneys do not distinguish between the waste from your brain and the waste from your muscles. They simply process whatever arrives in the bloodstream, treating all waste equally, removing all of it with the same patient efficiency. This lack of selectivity is itself a form of fairness, a recognition that all cells contribute to the body, that all cells deserve the same service, and that the waste from one is no more important or urgent than the waste from another. The balance the kidneys maintain extends beyond what you consume. It includes what you produce through metabolism, what you lose through breathing and sweating, and what you accumulate through the normal wear and tear of living. The kidneys account for all of it, adjusting their filtration and reabsorption to match not just your intake but your output, not just what you add to your body but what your body creates on its own. This accounting happens continuously, without books or records, without any conscious tracking. The kidneys simply respond to what they encounter, filtering what arrives, adjusting what they return, and maintaining balance through countless small decisions that add up to stability. Each decision is simple, each adjustment is minor, but together they create a system that can maintain internal equilibrium across a lifetime and that can adapt to growth and aging and all the changes that come with living. The system does not hurry towards some goal. It does not count down to completion. It simply continues, day after day, year after year, doing the same work it has always done, maintaining the same balance it has always maintained. This continuation is not monotonous, it is not boring, it is simply what the system does, what it was designed to do, and what it will continue doing for as long as it is able. And in this continuation, in this quiet persistence, there is a kind of peace. The peace of knowing that some things do not need to change, that some processes work well enough to last, and that the body has systems that require no improvement because they have already achieved what they need to achieve. The kidneys are such a system. They are not perfect, but they are sufficient. And sufficiency in the end is all that balance requires. The work continues even now, as these words fade, as your attention drifts, as sleep approaches or arrives. The filtering does not wait for your acknowledgement. The balance does not pause for your awareness. It simply continues, as it always has, as it always will, asking nothing, expecting nothing, offering only the quiet stability that allows everything else to rest. Now friends, let's slow down and really look at what happens when your body starts to heal itself at night and your mind starts to fade. It's not just about going to sleep, it's also about learning about one of the most complicated and beautiful things your body does every day. We'll learn how your brain changes from a busy city to a quiet village doing important repairs, how your muscles let go of their daily stress, and how each organ system changes its rhythm to help with this important time of renewal. As you listen, pay attention to how your body is getting ready to sleep. Your eyelids may already be getting heavy, and your breathing may be getting deeper on its own. This is your body's ancient knowledge at work. Systems that have been improved over millions of years of evolution are all working together to help you fall asleep. Let's start with a simple fact that people often forget. Sleep isn't the same as not doing anything. Your body and brain don't just turn off like a computer. Instead, sleep is a very active state in which your brain and body work together in a carefully planned symphony of restoration, consolidation, and renewal. While you sleep, your body does important work, like cleaning up after itself and getting ready for the next day. Hours before we actually close our eyes, the story of how we fall asleep begins. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, a group of cells smaller than a grain of rice, is the master clock for your body. It is deep inside your brain. This little clock, which is behind your eyes in the hypothalamus, has been keeping track of the light and dark that have passed through your day. It keeps an eye on the small changes in light intensity from dawn to dusk, just like a lighthouse keeper. This keeps your body connected to the ancient rhythms that have guided life on Earth for billions of years. As the sun goes down and the light starts to fade, this biological clock starts to send out its soft evening signals to the rest of your body. These aren't loud alarm bells. They're soft whispers that hormones and neurotransmitters send at just the right time and in just the right way to coordinate the very complicated process of getting ready for sleep. One of the first things it sends out is a hormone called melatonin. Your pineal gland, which is a small pine cone-shaped structure deep in your brain, makes this hormone. People used to think that the pineal gland was vestigial, which means it was a leftover from evolution that didn't really do anything. We now know that it is one of the most important parts of the body for controlling sleep and wakefulness. People often call melatonin the hormone of darkness, and there's a good reason for that. As the sun goes down, melatonin slowly and steadily rises in your blood. It's not like a sudden flood, it's more like a dimmer switch being slowly turned down, which makes you feel sleepy as bedtime gets closer. Melatonin is released on a very strict schedule. Around 9 p.m, melatonin levels start to rise in most people. They reach their highest point between 3 and 4 a.m, and then they slowly drop off until morning. Artificial light, especially the blue light from electronic devices, can throw off this rhythm. This is because it can trick your pineal gland into thinking it's still daytime and stop melatonin production. Melatonin doesn't work by itself though. Adenosine, another chemical, has been slowly building up in your brain all day. Adenosine is like money for your brain when it gets tired. When your neurons fire, when you think, and when you make a choice, your cells release small amounts of adenosine as a waste product. As the day goes on, adenosine builds up like snow on a hill. You feel sleepier the more you have. Adenosine works by attaching to certain receptors in your brain, especially in areas that control wakefulness and arousal. When there is enough adenosine, it stops these systems from waking you up. It's interesting that caffeine works by temporarily blocking adenosine receptors in your brain. This is why that afternoon coffee can make you feel awake even when you're really tired. The adenosine is still there and building up, but caffeine stops it from sending sleepy messages to your brain cells. As these chemicals that help you sleep start to affect your brain, your body temperature starts to change in an amazing way. Your core temperature, which has been at a steady 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit all day, starts to drop. You might think this is a simple reaction to a cooler evening, but it's actually an active process controlled by your hypothalamus, which is also where your master clock is. Your body cools down by a process called vasodilation, which is when blood vessels near the surface of your skin get wider. Blood moves from your core to your hands and feet, which is where it goes the most. This is why your hands and feet might feel warmer as you get ready for bed. They are acting as heat radiators, which helps lower your core temperature and tell your brain that it's time to sleep. This drop in temperature is so important for starting sleep that people who have trouble controlling their body temperature often have trouble sleeping. The link between sleep and temperature is stronger than you might think. During the course of human evolution, the sleep patterns of our ancestors were intricately linked to the natural cooling that follows sunset. This old temperature pattern still happens today, even in our climate-controlled spaces. Your core body temperature naturally changes by about 2 degrees over the course of a day. It is lowest around 4 a.m. and highest in the early evening. Your cardiovascular system also starts to change in the evening with amazing accuracy. Your heart rate, which has been changing to meet the needs of your busy day, speeding up when you climb stairs and slowing down when you sit quietly, starts to settle into its nighttime rhythm. Your heart rate changes all the time during the day to keep up with the different things you're doing and feeling. As you get closer to sleep, this variability goes down and your heart starts to beat more slowly and steadily. Your blood pressure, which goes up and down during the day because of stress, activity, and emotion, starts to settle into its nighttime pattern as well. Doctors call the drop in blood pressure that happens at night dipping. This dip is usually 10 to 15% lower than during the day. It gives your heart and blood vessels a chance to rest and heal. People who don't have this normal drop in blood pressure at night, known as non-dippers, are more likely to get heart disease. This shows how important it is for heart health to get enough sleep at night. The changes that happen in your heart and blood vessels when you get ready for bed aren't just about slowing down, they're also about getting the most out of your sleep. Your heart doesn't just slow down when you sleep, it also works better. The time between heartbeats gets more regular, and the heart muscle doesn't have to work as hard to pump blood around your body. This lighter workload lets the heart muscle cells repair themselves. At the same time, your breathing starts to change in small but important ways. The beat gets more regular, deeper, and slower. Your diaphragm, the dome-shaped muscle under your lungs that does most of the work of breathing, starts to work in a more relaxed way. Your breathing changes throughout the day based on what you're doing, how you feel, and what you're thinking about. As sleep gets closer, breathing becomes more automatic. The brainstem's respiratory centers control it more than conscious effort does. This change in breathing actually helps your body make other changes that help you sleep, which makes you feel more relaxed. Your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest part of your autonomic nervous system, kicks in when you breathe more slowly and deeply. This activation slows your heart rate even more, relaxes your muscles, and encourages the release of neurotransmitters that calm you down. Changing the way you breathe is only one part of how your respiratory system gets ready for sleep. There are small changes in the airways themselves. Some people snore more when they sleep because the muscles that keep their throats open during the day start to relax. Your airways make mucus in a way that follows a circadian rhythm. This means that the amount of mucus can change at different times of the night, which can make your breathing passages less clear. Your digestive system is also getting ready for the night shift with its own complicated dance. Your digestive system has been working all day, making stomach acid when you eat, releasing digestive enzymes, and moving food through your intestines with rhythmic muscle contractions. This system starts to slow down as the sun goes down. The production of digestive enzymes slows down, and the muscles that push food through your intestines contract less often and with less force. The enteric nervous system, which is sometimes called the second brain because it has so many neurons in your gut, controls this slowdown in digestion. Your enteric nervous system gets the message from your brain and makes changes as your central nervous system gets ready for sleep. It's not just that digestion slows down food processing that makes sleep and digestion more complicated. Your gut makes a lot of the same neurotransmitters as your brain, like serotonin, which is important for sleep and mood. Your intestines, not your brain, make about 90% of the serotonin in your body. This is why how you eat and how healthy your digestive system is can have such a big effect on how well you sleep. Your liver, which is an amazing chemical processing plant, also goes into its nighttime mode. Your liver works hard during the day to break down the nutrients in your food, make bile to help digest fat, and keep your blood sugar levels stable. When night falls, the liver's priorities change. It lowers the amount of glucose made, which helps keep blood sugar levels steady during the overnight fast. It changes its focus to detoxification, breaking down and neutralizing the different chemicals and toxins that have built up in your body during the day. This detox work at night is very important for staying healthy. Your liver breaks down everything from toxins in the environment to the waste products that cells make when they break down. When you're sleeping and not eating or drinking, the liver can put more energy into these cleaning processes. While all of these changes are happening to your body, your brain is also going through a very interesting change. Your brain's electrical activity changes from the fast, varied, and responsive patterns that define your waking brain to the slower, more synchronized patterns that will keep you awake all night. An electroencephalogram, EEG, can measure your brain waves. They start to change from the fast, alert beta waves of focused wakefulness to the slower alpha waves of relaxation. Beta waves, which range from 13 to 30 cycles per second, show that your brain is awake and working on problems. Alpha waves, which happen 8 to 13 times per second, show a more relaxed, meditative state. This change from beta to alpha waves is the start of your brain's journey to sleep. At this point, your conscious mind also starts to let go of its tight grip on your thoughts and feelings. Have you ever noticed that your thoughts get more fluid and dreamlike as you go to sleep? This isn't random. Your brain's prefrontal cortex, which controls executive functions, planning, and logical thinking, is slowly becoming less active. The prefrontal cortex is like a strict boss during the day, making sure your thoughts are organized and focused on your goals. When this supervisor goes off duty, other parts of your brain become more active. This is what causes the strange, often illogical thoughts and images that can pop into your head when you're sleepy. There will be changes in how neurotransmitters work in different parts of your brain during this transition. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter that is linked to motivation and seeking rewards, starts to go down. Norepinephrine, which helps you stay awake and aware of your surroundings, also begins to drop. At the same time, GABA, the brain's main inhibitory neurotransmitter, starts to work harder. GABA is like a brake pedal for your nervous system. It slows down neural activity and helps you relax. Your senses are also getting ready for their nighttime duties in a very coordinated way. Your eyes start to relax after having to adjust to different levels of light all day. The muscles that control the size of your pupils and the shape of your lens relax. Your pupils get a little bigger, but not because you're trying to let in more light. It's because the muscles that control them are relaxing as part of getting ready for sleep. More than just relaxing your muscles happens when your visual system goes to sleep. The rods and cones in your retina, which are the photoreceptor cells, start to change how sensitive they are. The cones, which are responsible for seeing color and work best in bright light, become less active. The rods, which are more sensitive to light but can't tell colors apart, keep doing their job. This is why colors may not look as bright in dim evening light. Your eyes are already getting ready for the low light of sleep. Your hearing doesn't completely stop while you sleep. In fact, your brain acts as a kind of guard all night, always listening for sounds that could mean trouble. But as you get ready for bed, your ears do start to process sounds differently. Your brain stops paying attention to normal, non-threatening sounds and stays alert to strange or possibly dangerous ones. The thalamus, a relay station in your brain that acts as a gatekeeper for sensory information, controls this selective attention. The thalamus is very important for falling asleep. During wakefulness, it sends sensory information from your ears, eyes, skin, and other sense organs to the right parts of your cerebral cortex for processing. As you get closer to sleep, the thalamus starts to turn down the volume on sensory input to your conscious brain by reducing this relay function. This is why sounds that would catch your attention during the day might not even register as you're falling asleep. As you get ready for sleep, your sense of touch also changes in interesting ways. The line between your body and the world around you gets less clear. The body schema, which is how your brain sees your body, starts to fade. This is controlled by parts of your parietal lobe that usually keep a very accurate map of where your body is in space and how it's positioned. Proprioceptors are specialized sensors in your muscles, joints, and inner ear that tell your brain where your body is and how it's moving. They keep your body awareness up to date all the time when you're awake. Your brain pays less attention to these proprioceptive signals as you get closer to sleep. This is why you might feel like you're floating or sinking as you fall asleep. Your brain is slowly losing track of where your body is in space. When you let go of something, you might feel a hypnic jerk, which is that sudden feeling of falling that wakes you up just as you're about to fall asleep. Your brain thinks that your muscles relaxing means you're really falling, which makes you jerk to protect yourself. Most people get hypnic jerks from time to time, and they are perfectly normal. As you sleep, your brain starts one of the most amazing journeys of restoration and consolidation that happens in nature. Sleep isn't just one state. It's made up of several stages, each with its own purpose, characteristics, and biological processes. These stages repeat every 90 minutes throughout the night, like movements in a complex symphony, and each one is important for your overall recovery and readiness for the next day. Light sleep, or Stage 1 NREM, non-rapid eye movement, sleep, is the first stage of sleep. This is that sleepy state in between being awake and asleep. During this time, if someone were to measure your brain waves, they would see the slow rolling theta waves that are typical of this stage. Your muscles don't stop working completely, but they do slow down a lot. Your eyes move more slowly, going from quick darting movements when you're awake to slow rolling motions. Your mind starts to break apart during stage 1 sleep. You might have hypnagogic hallucinations, which are short dreamlike sounds or images that seem real but are actually made up by your brain as it changes. These could be things like seeing flashes of light, hearing someone call your name, or feeling like you're floating. As different parts of your brain shut down at slightly different rates, these experiences happen. This makes it so that perception and reality don't always match up. You might not even know you were sleeping if someone woke you up during stage 1 sleep. You could say that you were just resting your eyes or thinking quietly. This stage usually only lasts a few minutes in healthy adults. It helps them transition from being awake to deeper sleep. But the length can change depending on things like how old you are, how stressed you are, and how healthy your sleep is overall. Stage 2. Sleep is where you spend most of the night, about 45% of the total sleep time for healthy adults. Researchers have given these brainwave patterns very descriptive names: sleep spindles and K-complexes. On an EEG readout, sleep spindles look like spindle-shaped waves. They are short bursts of rhythmic brain activity. Your thalamus, the same part of your brain that controls your senses, makes them. They show that your brain is actively keeping outside stimuli from reaching your conscious mind. During stage 2 sleep, your brain gets big, dramatic waves called K-complexes. Your brain seems to respond to sounds, touches, and other sensations from outside by sending these waves. These are things that your brain picks up on, but doesn't think are threatening enough to wake you up. K-complexes are your brain's way of saying, "I heard that, but it's not important enough to wake me up." For example, a car door slamming outside might make a K-complex, but it won't wake you up unless your brain thinks it's dangerous. Your heart rate and breathing keep slowing down and becoming more regular during stage 2 sleep. Your body temperature drops even more, reaching levels that would be worrying if you were awake but are perfectly normal when you sleep. Your muscles relax more completely, but they don't get as relaxed as they do when you're in deeper stages of sleep. This is also when your brain really starts to do some of its important maintenance work. Your brain's waste removal system, the glymphatic system, starts to work harder. You can think of the glymphatic system as the brain's nighttime cleaning service. When you're awake, your brain cells are very close together, which makes it hard for cerebrospinal fluid to flow through and clean up cellular waste. Your brain cells actually shrink by about 60% while you sleep, especially in the deeper stages we're getting close to. This makes channels that let cerebrospinal fluid flow more easily through brain tissue. As the night goes on, you enter stages 3 and 4 of sleep, which are often grouped together and called deep sleep, slow wave sleep, or delta sleep. Going into deep sleep is like going down into the depths of a calm ocean. Your brain waves change to delta waves, which are the slowest frequency. They move through your brain like gentle, powerful ocean waves. These waves go up and down less than 4 times per second, which is a big difference from the fast beta waves of being awake. Real restoration magic happens during deep sleep, and the changes that happen during this stage are nothing short of amazing. Your brain syncs up in a way that it never does when you're awake. Your brain's millions of neurons fire together in slow, organized waves. This synchronization makes it possible for things to happen that can't happen when the brain is awake and busy. Your pituitary gland makes the most growth hormone when you are in deep sleep. It's not just kids who need growth hormone, adults need it too. It helps your body make proteins, breaks down fat for energy, keeps your muscles strong, strengthens your bones, and helps your tissues heal. People who don't get enough deep sleep have lower levels of growth hormone, which shows how important it is for the body to release it during deep sleep. During deep sleep, your immune system works at a level that would be impossible to keep up with during the day. The number of white blood cells that fight infections goes up a lot. Your bone marrow, spleen, and lymph nodes work hard to make and send immune cells all over your body. Cytokines, which are chemical messengers that help the immune system work, are at their highest levels when you are in deep sleep. This immune activation while you sleep helps explain why you often feel worse when you're sick. Your body is using a lot of energy to fight the infection, energy that would normally be used for other things. It also explains why getting enough sleep is so important for staying healthy, and why people who don't get enough sleep are more likely to get colds and other infections. Your muscles have been relaxing more and more as you sleep, and now they are at their most relaxed state. Deep sleep starts to fix all the tension that builds up in muscle fibers during the day, like tiny tears, the buildup of metabolic waste, and the effects of stress and strain. Muscle tissue makes more proteins, which helps repair and strengthen muscle fibers. More blood flows to the muscles, bringing them new oxygen and nutrients and taking away waste. But the most interesting thing is that deep sleep is when your brain does some of its most important and thorough cleaning. The glymphatic system started working during stage 2 sleep and is now working at full capacity. The interstitial space, which is the space between your brain cells, gets a lot bigger during deep sleep, by 60% or more. This growth makes pathways for cerebrospinal fluid to move through your brain tissue, which cleans up the waste products that build up from daily neural activity. This cleaning process is especially important for getting rid of certain proteins that can be dangerous if they build up. When beta amyloid builds up in the brain, it can lead to Alzheimer's disease. During deep sleep, the body actively gets rid of this protein fragment. This nightly cleaning cycle also gets rid of tau proteins, which are another group of proteins linked to neurodegenerative diseases. The glymphatic system doesn't do this cleaning job by itself. During deep sleep, glial cells, which are the brain's support cells, become more active. The brain's immune cells, called microglia, become more active and look for and destroy damaged cells and cellular debris. Astrocytes are star-shaped cells that help neurons in many ways. They help move cerebrospinal fluid through brain tissue and help get rid of waste. During deep sleep, it's like your brain opens all its doors and windows, letting new cerebrospinal fluid flow through every corner, picking up the day's neural debris and carrying it away through your lymphatic system. Researchers now think that sleep disorders and not getting enough sleep for a long time may lead to neurodegenerative diseases because they stop the brain from cleaning itself properly. Deep sleep is also very good for your heart and blood vessels. Your heart rate drops to its lowest point of the day, which gives your heart muscle a lot of time to rest between contractions. Blood pressure drops to its lowest point, which gives your arteries a break and time to heal any damage they may have done during the day. Doctors use the drop in blood pressure during deep sleep as a sign of heart health because it happens so often. During deep sleep, your brain's blood vessels also change in important ways. They get a little bigger, which lets more blood flow through them. This helps with both the glymphatic cleaning process and the extra neural activity needed for memory consolidation. This increased blood flow to the brain brings new oxygen and glucose to brain cells and helps get rid of waste. Deep sleep is also good for your bones because it gives them a lot of rest. Osteoblasts, which are cells that build bone, become more active while you sleep. They lay down new bone material and keep your bones strong. The growth hormone that is released during deep sleep and the lower levels of cortisol, which can stop bone formation when they are too high, help this process along. The way the endocrine system works during deep sleep is especially beautiful. Cortisol, which is often called the stress hormone, is at its lowest levels during the first half of the night. This lets your body relax completely and start the healing process. Growth hormone levels go up. Prolactin, a hormone that helps the immune system and heals tissues, goes up. When these hormones rise and fall in a coordinated way, they make the best conditions for healing and restoration. After about 90 minutes of moving through these progressively deeper stages of NRM sleep, your brain does something amazing. It completely changes gears and enters REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep. One of the most dramatic changes that happens in the body is when you go from waking up to REM sleep. Even though the name suggests fast movement, REM sleep causes your voluntary muscles to become very weak and almost completely paralyzed. REM atonia is the name for this paralysis, which is actually a way for your brainstem neurons to protect you. These neurons actively stop the motor neurons that control your muscles, which stops you from acting out the vivid dreams that happen during this stage of sleep. The paralysis is so bad that your body is almost completely immobile. except for your diaphragm, which needs to keep working for you to breathe, and your eye muscles. Neurotransmitters that actively stop muscle activity are what cause REM atonia. Glycine and GABA are both inhibitory neurotransmitters that fill your spinal cord's motor neurons, stopping them from sending signals to your muscles. This paralysis usually goes away when you wake up from REM sleep, but sometimes it doesn't happen right away, which can be scary because you wake up mentally but can't move. Your brain is almost as active during REM sleep as it is when you're awake, but the activity is very different and has a different purpose. Researchers think that your brain is going through a process of consolidation, integration, and creative synthesis instead of responding to things happening outside of you and making decisions about the world around you. Your experiences, lessons, and memories from the day are being sorted, evaluated, and added to what you already know and have done. Think of it as your brain's librarian working all night, but this librarian doesn't just put new books on the right shelves. Instead, this librarian reads the new books, compares them to old ones, looks for connections and themes, and sometimes even writes new books that bring together ideas from different sources. This is why you might wake up with the answer to a problem that had you stumped the day before, or with a creative idea that seems to come out of nowhere. During REM sleep, the neurochemical environment of your brain is very different from when you are awake or in other stages of sleep. During wakefulness, norepinephrine, serotonin, and histamine are the most common neurotransmitters. During this time, they are at their lowest levels of the whole 24-hour cycle. This decrease in these wake-promoting neurotransmitters lets other brain systems take over. During REM sleep, acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that is important for learning and memory, becomes much more active. People think that this higher level of acetylcholine activity is very important for the memory consolidation processes that happen during this stage. Some scientists say that the brain during REM sleep is like a brain that has been given drugs that boost acetylcholine levels. This is because the cholinergic system, which is the brain's acetylcholine network, becomes so active during this time. This one-of-a-kind mix of neurochemicals makes the conditions for the vivid, often strange things that happen in our dreams. When you sleep in REM, your brain makes up detailed stories that can feel very real while you're dreaming them. You might find yourself flying, talking to people who died years ago, or figuring out how to solve problems that seem impossible. These dreams aren't just random neural firing, they seem to play important roles in processing feelings, storing memories, and even boosting creativity. REM dreams are usually more complicated, emotionally charged, and story-like than the short, simple dreams that can happen during other stages of sleep. Your brain is basically making complicated virtual reality experiences that let it deal with feelings, solve problems, and connect different pieces of information in a safe place where there are no consequences. During REM sleep, your body's temperature control system works in very different ways, which shows how special this stage of sleep really is. During REM sleep, your body becomes almost cold-blooded, like a reptile. This is different from other sleep stages, when your body can still control its temperature by shivering, sweating, or changing blood flow. Your body's thermostat is off for a short time, and your core temperature moves toward the temperature of the room. This short-term loss of thermoregulation is why the temperature of your sleeping environment is so important for good REM sleep. Your body can't adjust during REM periods if your bedroom is too hot or too cold. This can break up this important sleep stage and make it less restorative. The temporary loss of thermoregulation during REM sleep also has an effect on other parts of this sleep stage. The hypothalamus is the part of your brain that controls your circadian rhythms and keeps your body temperature stable. During REM sleep, these centers basically shut down, which might explain why REM sleep periods are often linked to the most vivid and emotionally intense dreams. The brain areas that usually keep things running smoothly are temporarily out of service. Your heart and blood vessels also show different patterns during REM sleep. NRM sleep is when your heart rate and blood pressure are steady and low. REM sleep, on the other hand, is when your heart rate and blood pressure can change a lot. During REM sleep, your heart rate and blood pressure can change a lot. sometimes getting close to or even higher than what they are when you're awake. These changes often match the emotional content of your dreams. For example, your heart might race during a scary or exciting dream, even though your body is completely still. This heart activity during REM sleep is very important for health. People who have certain heart problems may be more likely to have heart problems during REM sleep, when the combination of intense brain activity and changes in the heart's blood flow can put extra stress on the heart. This is one reason why sleep quality and heart health are so closely linked. The pattern and length of these sleep stages change in interesting ways as the night goes on. You spend more time in the deeper, slow-wave stages of NREM sleep early in the night, when your body needs to heal the most. Your first REM period of the night could only last a few minutes, but as morning gets closer and your body gets the rest it needs, your brain starts to focus on the mental processing that happens during REM sleep. As the night goes on, your REM periods get longer and happen more often. In the early morning hours, you might spend 30 to 40 minutes in REM sleep during each 90-minute cycle. This is a lot more than the few minutes you spend in REM sleep during your first cycle of the night. It seems like your brain saves the hardest processing jobs for the hours right before you wake up, when it can work without being interrupted by the more important needs for physical restoration. The fact that the stages of sleep change throughout the night helps explain why waking up at different times can feel so different. Researchers call it sleep inertia, when you wake up during a deep sleep period early in the night and feel groggy and confused. But if you wake up naturally at the end of an REM period in the early morning, you're more likely to feel awake and refreshed, and you'll remember your dreams clearly. Your endocrine system works the same way all night long. It restores your body early on and then gets ready for you to wake up. The body releases growth hormone mostly during the deep sleep periods of the first half of the night. This hormone is very important for repairing the body, but as morning gets closer, your hormones start to change to wakefulness. Cortisol levels were at their lowest in the first half of the night. They start to rise in the hours before dawn. This rise in cortisol isn't a sign of stress. It's just your body getting ready for the energy needs of the next day. When you wake up, your cortisol levels are high enough to make you feel awake and ready to face the day. The timing of this rise in cortisol is perfectly in sync with your body's natural circadian rhythm. If you tend to wake up early, your cortisol levels will start to rise earlier in the night. The rise happens later if you are naturally more of a night owl. Your master clock in the suprachiasmatic nucleus controls this. It has been keeping time while you sleep and coordinating the complicated hormonal changes that will help you wake up more easily. During sleep, thyroid hormones also follow a daily pattern. Thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, increases during sleep, which helps the body release thyroid hormones that help control metabolism. These hormones work with cortisol and growth hormone to control the complicated metabolic processes that happen while you sleep and when you wake up. Your immune system sees the whole time you sleep as a good time to repair and strengthen itself. But the way it works changes as you go through different stages of sleep. When you're in deep sleep, your body is focused on healing itself, and your immune system is busy making and sending out cells that fight infections. T helper cells, which help your immune system work, get more active. Your liver, spleen, and lymph nodes do a better job of getting rid of toxins and cellular waste. When you sleep in REM, your immune system shifts its focus to inflammatory processes that help your brain work better and strengthen your memory. Some inflammatory markers that would be worrying while awake actually go up during REM sleep. This seems to be a normal part of the process of synaptic remodeling and memory formation. This is why you often feel tired and get sick more easily when you don't get enough sleep. Your immune system hasn't had enough time to do its nighttime maintenance. People who don't get enough sleep on a regular basis have weaker immune systems and vaccines that don't work as well and are more likely to get sick. Sleep is also very important and complicated for remembering things and learning. It's not just a matter of moving data from temporary storage to permanent storage. The process is much more complicated and creative than that. Your brain is always working to connect new memories with old ones while you sleep. especially during slow wave and REM sleep. These connections and associations aren't clear to your conscious mind. During different stages of sleep, your brain processes different kinds of memories. NRM sleep is when procedural memories, like how to ride a bike or play a musical instrument, are mostly stored. Declarative memories, which include facts, events, and experiences, benefit from both NREM and REM sleep, but in different ways. NREM sleep helps these memories become stronger and more stable, while REM sleep helps them fit in with what you already know and find general rules and patterns. During REM sleep, this integration process is very creative. Your brain doesn't just store new memories, it also looks for links between them and old memories. Sometimes it finds links that weren't clear when you were awake. This is why you might wake up with new ideas about problems you've been working on, or why creative solutions seem to come out of nowhere after a good night's sleep. Your brain goes through physical changes during the memory consolidation process. While you sleep, the connections between neurons, called synapses, get stronger for important memories and weaker for less important ones. This process, known as synaptic homeostasis, is similar to how a gardener trims a plant to keep the most important branches strong while cutting back on unnecessary growth so that the most important connections can grow. Your brain also goes through a process called systems consolidation while you sleep. This is when memories that were first stored in the hippocampus, a part of the brain that is very important for making new memories, are slowly moved to more permanent storage areas in the cerebral cortex. This process of moving memories can take weeks or even months. Each night's sleep helps memories settle into their long-term storage places. During this process, the hippocampus works like a temporary storage space. The hippocampus quickly makes connections that help you remember what you learned during the day. But these first connections are weak and won't last long. The hippocampus replays these new memories over and over again while you sleep, sending them to different parts of the cortex. Every time you replay, the connections in the cortex get stronger, slowly creating a permanent storage network that doesn't need the hippocampus anymore. The replay process is most active during the sharp wave ripples that happen when you're in NREM sleep. These ripples are short, high-frequency bursts of electrical activity that move through the hippocampus and reactivate the neural patterns that were made during learning. Your hippocampus seems to be teaching the rest of your brain while you sleep by going over the lessons from the day over and over until they are fully learned. When you sleep, your body goes through a process of restoration that affects every system in your body, including your brain. This is a full body renewal that affects every cell and organ. During sleep, your skin, which is the body's largest organ, does a lot of the work of repairing itself. During sleep, cell division and protein synthesis go up a lot, which helps heal the small damage done during the day by the sun, toxins in the environment, and normal wear and tear. The way the skin heals itself while you sleep is very complicated and works very well. During sleep, the body makes the most collagen, which keeps the skin strong and flexible. More blood flows to the skin, bringing new nutrients and oxygen while taking away waste. The skin makes new cells faster, which helps replace damaged cells and keep the skin's protective barrier intact. People often say they need beauty sleep because it's true that sleep helps keep skin looking young and healthy. Researchers have found that people who don't get enough sleep show signs of aging more quickly, such as more fine lines, uneven skin tone, and less skin elasticity. Your hair follicles also follow a circadian rhythm, which means that they grow the most while you sleep. Hormones released during sleep, especially growth hormone, help hair grow and keep it healthy. This is why not getting enough sleep for a long time can make your hair thin and fall out. The follicles aren't getting the hormones they need to grow well. Your digestive system does a lot of maintenance and repair work at night when it's relatively quiet. The cells that line your stomach and intestines are constantly under attack from digestive acids, food particles, and bacteria. They grow back faster while you sleep. The body makes more protective mucus, which helps keep the barrier between what you eat and drink and the inside of your body. During sleep, your liver can focus on detoxification because it doesn't have to deal with the daily demands of processing food. There are two main steps in the liver's detoxification process. First, it breaks down toxins into smaller pieces. Then it makes these pieces water-soluble so they can be removed through urine or bile. During sleep, both phases are more active because the liver can focus more on cleaning your blood and getting rid of toxins that have built up. During sleep, the liver also helps keep your metabolism going. It helps keep your blood sugar levels stable during your overnight fast by slowly releasing stored glucose to keep your brain and other organs' energy levels steady. It breaks down fats and cholesterol, makes important proteins, and makes bile for the next day to help digest fats. Your kidneys also work harder during some stages of sleep. They do a better job of filtering waste from your blood, concentrating urine, and keeping the right balance of fluids and electrolytes in your body. The increased efficiency of kidney function during sleep is why your urine is typically more concentrated in the morning. Your kidneys have been working to conserve water while efficiently eliminating waste. Your lymphatic system, which helps drain your body and keep an eye on your immune system, works extra hard while you sleep. When you sleep, your muscles relax and you lie down, which makes lymph fluid flow more easily. Lymph fluid carries cellular waste and immune cells around your body. Lymph nodes work hard to get rid of bacteria, viruses, and cellular debris that have built up during the day. The lymphatic system and the glymphatic system in your brain work together to make a network throughout your body for getting rid of waste and keeping an eye on your immune system. This coordination shows why getting enough sleep is so important for your health. Your body's cleaning and repair systems work best when you sleep. During sleep, your bones and muscles get a lot of repair and strengthening. When you do normal daily activities, your muscle fibers get tiny tears. Increased protein synthesis fixes these tears. Growth hormone, which is mostly released during deep sleep, helps muscles grow and heal. When you sleep, blood flow to your muscles increases. This brings in new nutrients and oxygen and takes away metabolic waste products like lactic acid. Your bones also benefit significantly from sleep. Osteoblasts, which are cells that build bone, become more active while you sleep. They add new bone material and keep the density of your bones. Growth hormone and lower levels of cortisol during sleep help this process along. High levels of cortisol can make it harder for bones to form. The rest your body gets during sleep also helps your bones heal from the stress of carrying weight during the day. When you sleep, your joints and connective tissues fix themselves. Your joint's cartilage doesn't have its own blood supply, but it gets nutrients from the pressure and release that happens when you move. When you sleep, your joints are mostly still, which lets cartilage absorb fluids and nutrients more easily. This helps keep your joints healthy and flexible. The intervertebral discs in your spine actually expand during sleep as you lie horizontally. During the day, gravity squeezes these discs, pushing some of the fluid out of them. The discs take in fluid and grow at night when the pressure of gravity is gone. Your spine has actually decompressed while you sleep, which is why you are a little taller in the morning than in the evening. Your reproductive system also follows circadian rhythms that are very similar to sleep. Men's bodies make the most testosterone while they sleep, especially during REM sleep. The most active time for the pulsatile release of luteinizing hormone, which boosts testosterone production, is when you sleep. This is why men usually have the most testosterone in the morning after a good night's sleep. Sleep patterns also affect the reproductive hormones that control the menstrual cycle in women. Follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone are released in a way that follows the body's natural rhythms. Changes in sleep can change these rhythms. This could be why people who work shifts or have chronic sleep problems sometimes have trouble getting pregnant. Your respiratory system keeps doing its important work while you sleep, but it does so in a way that makes it easier to get oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. Breathing becomes more regular and efficient while you sleep in NREM. Your brainstem's respiratory centers keep your breathing steady and rhythmic without any conscious effects that can make waking breathing irregular. During some stages of sleep, your lungs are better at exchanging gases. When you lie down, blood flow to different parts of your lungs changes, which makes ventilation more even and matches airflow to blood flow better. Your respiratory system can keep enough oxygen levels with less work because of this increased efficiency. But when you sleep, your muscles relax, which also affects your airways. When you sleep, the muscles that keep your throat open relax, which can make the airway a little narrower. This is why people snore more when they sleep, and why some people get sleep apnea, which is when their airway gets blocked for a short time while they sleep. There is a special blood supply to your brain that changes in important ways while you sleep. During sleep, the blood-brain barrier, which keeps toxins out of your brain and controls what can get into brain tissue, becomes more open to some helpful substances. This higher permeability makes it easier for nutrients to get to where they need to go and for waste products to be removed more quickly. During REM sleep, blood flow to the brain rises, which helps the high metabolic activity of this sleep stage. The extra blood flow brings in new glucose and oxygen to help with the intense neural processing that happens during REM sleep. And it also helps get rid of the metabolic waste products that come from this activity. The cerebrospinal fluid that surrounds your brain and spinal cord also has a circadian rhythm. The body makes more of this fluid while you sleep, which helps the glymphatic cleaning processes we talked about before. The makeup of cerebrospinal fluid also changes while you sleep. It has different amounts of proteins, ions, and other things that help the brain work at night. As the morning gets closer, your body starts the complicated and beautifully timed process of getting ready to wake up. This isn't a sudden change from sleep to wakefulness. It's a slow process that starts about an hour before you naturally wake up and involves dozens of biological systems working together perfectly. The first signs of this awakening process start in your suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is the master clock we talked about at the start of our journey. This tiny clock has been keeping track of the time all night, and when your set sleep time is up, it starts the process of waking you up with the same accuracy it used to help you fall asleep. Your core body temperature, which dropped during the night to help you sleep, starts to slowly rise back to waking levels. This rise in temperature is an active process that includes changes in blood flow, metabolism, and how much heat is made. The warming doesn't happen all at once. It starts an hour before you wake up and goes on until the early morning hours. The first half of the night was when cortisol levels were at their lowest. They start to rise steadily in the morning. Your body naturally raises cortisol levels to give you the energy and alertness you need for the day ahead. This is not a response to stress. Researchers call it the cortisol awakening response, and it gives you a burst of energy that helps you move from sleep to wakefulness. This rise in cortisol happens at just the right time for your own circadian rhythm, and things like how much light you get, how much you exercise, and when you eat can all affect it. People who stick to a regular sleep schedule have stronger and more accurate cortisol awakening responses, which help them feel more awake and energized in the morning. Melatonin levels, which are highest in the middle of the night, start to slowly drop as morning approaches. This drop in melatonin takes away one of the main signs that you're sleepy, which makes other systems that wake you up more noticeable. Light exposure speeds up the drop in melatonin, which is why opening curtains or turning on lights can help you wake up. This morning's symphony also includes other hormones. Thyroid hormones rise to help the body meet the higher metabolic needs of being awake. As your body goes from sleeping, when it needs to heal, to being awake, when it needs to be active, your growth hormone levels go down. The exact timing of these hormones' rises and falls makes the best conditions for waking up. As morning gets closer, your sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight part of your autonomic nervous system, gets more active. This higher sympathetic activity makes your heart beat faster, raises your blood pressure a little, and makes you more alert. The activation is slow and gentle, which is very different from the sudden sympathetic surge you might feel when you wake up to a loud alarm. Light is very important during this morning transition, even if your eyes are closed. Even a little bit of light coming in through your eyelids can tell your brain that it's time to start waking up as the sun rises. There are special cells in your retina called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells that are very sensitive to blue light and send signals straight to your suprachiasmatic nucleus. These cells that are sensitive to light don't help you see in the usual way. Instead, they are part of your circadian system. They can see light even when your eyes are mostly closed during sleep. Their signals help reset your circadian rhythms for the next day, making sure that your internal clock stays in sync with the outside world. The gradual rise in light also causes changes in the production of neurotransmitters. As morning comes, serotonin levels, which were low during REM sleep, start to rise. This rise in serotonin helps make you feel better and more awake. The link between light, serotonin, and mood helps us understand why people often feel better on sunny days, and why light therapy can help with seasonal depression. As you get ready to wake up, your brain's neurotransmitter systems go through a carefully planned rebalancing. The neurotransmitters that were blocked during REM sleep, such as norepinephrine, serotonin, and histamine, start to rise again. These chemicals help you wake up, feel better, and think more clearly. Dopamine, a neurotransmitter that makes you want to do things and get rewards, also goes up as you get closer to waking up. This rise in dopamine gives you the drive to get up and interact with the world instead of just staying in bed and sleeping. The process of waking up involves a carefully planned rise in brain activity, but this rise follows a certain pattern. The brainstem arousal systems, which control basic wakefulness, are the first to turn on. Then the thalamus, which sends sensory information to the cortex, starts to work normally again. Finally, the cortex itself becomes fully active, bringing back the ability to think, plan, and make decisions at a higher level. Your prefrontal cortex, which had been pretty quiet while you were sleeping, starts to get more active. This gives you back your ability to think logically, plan, and take charge. This reactivation doesn't happen right away. It can take 30 minutes or more for your prefrontal cortex to work at full capacity after you wake up. That's why you might feel groggy or mentally slow right after you wake up. During the awakening process, your motor cortex, which controls voluntary movement, also comes back to life. You are no longer paralyzed, which kept you from acting out your dreams. You now have full control of your muscles. You may notice that your first movements after waking up are slow and deliberate. This is because your motor system is slowly getting back to full function after shutting down for the night. As you wake up, the sensory gating that happened while you were sleeping, blocking out sensory information that wasn't threatening, slowly goes away. Your thalamus goes back to doing its full relay job, which lets sensory information get to your conscious mind. Sounds that would have been blocked out while you were sleeping become clear. Your sensitivity to touch, temperature, and other feelings goes back to normal. Your autonomic nervous system also changes from being asleep to being awake. The heart rate goes from the slow, steady rhythm of sleep to the more variable pattern of wakefulness. Blood pressure goes up from its low levels at night. Breathing becomes easier to control on purpose and in response to the environment. Your stomach and digestive enzymes get ready for the first meal of the day by making more of them. Your liver starts making more glucose to give you energy for the busy day ahead. Your kidneys change how they work to meet the different needs for fluids and electrolytes that come with being awake. It takes a lot of coordination to go from sleep to wakefulness. To make the smooth transition from sleep to wakefulness, dozens of different systems must all change how they work at the same time. You feel awake and refreshed when this process goes smoothly, which means you wake up naturally at the end of a sleep cycle. But if this process is interrupted, like when you wake up in the middle of a deep sleep cycle, you may feel groggy and confused for 30 minutes or more after waking. This shows how complicated and carefully planned the transition from sleep to wakefulness is. The advantages of this nightly restoration cycle go well beyond just feeling rested. New research keeps showing how important sleep is to almost every part of human health and performance. Getting enough sleep helps the brain work properly, keeps emotions in check, strengthens the immune system, keeps the heart healthy, helps the body recover, and keeps the metabolism going. People who consistently get good sleep have better cognitive performance, more stable moods, a stronger immune system, better weight management, and even longer lives than people who don't get enough sleep. Sleep changes how your genes are expressed, which means which genes are turned on or off in different cells in your body. Sleep affects how your cells fix DNA damage that builds up while you're awake. Your body reacts to stress, handles emotions, and makes and keeps relationships differently when you sleep. Sleep research keeps showing links between how well we sleep and almost every part of our health that we can measure. Sleep has an effect on hormone levels, the immune system, metabolism, heart health, mental health, cognitive performance, and even the process of aging. People who get enough sleep make better choices, are more creative and innovative, have better relationships, and do more good things for their communities. Sleep is not only important for our own health, but it is also necessary for society to work properly. People who get enough sleep are more likely to be kind and helpful, less likely to do risky or antisocial things, and better able to help their families, workplaces, and communities. The quality of our sleep as a group has a direct impact on the quality of our civilization. The study of sleep also gives us interesting information about how humans evolved and where we fit into the natural world. Humans are one of the most unusual animals when it comes to sleeping. We sleep less than most other primates, but a larger percentage of our sleep is REM sleep. We are one of the few mammals that can choose not to sleep, and we've made artificial environments that can mess with our natural sleep patterns. These distinctive characteristics of human sleep may have been pivotal to our evolutionary success. The capacity to prolong wakefulness, experience enhanced REM sleep for learning and memory consolidation, and synchronize sleep patterns socially may have conferred advantages to our ancestors in survival, collaboration, and cultural advancement. But the way we live today often goes against the way we used to sleep. Artificial light, irregular schedules, electronic devices, and a society that never sleeps can all mess up the natural rhythms that have helped people sleep well for thousands of years. As we build more and more complicated technological environments, it becomes more and more important to understand these disruptions and find ways to work with our natural biology instead of against it. There are many exciting things that could happen in sleep research in the future. Scientists are coming up with new ways to measure and understand sleep. For example, they are using wearable devices to track sleep stages and brain imaging techniques to show how different sleep processes work in the brain. We're learning how to help people get better sleep by using light and other things in their environment, and we're also learning how to treat sleep disorders more effectively. Studies on the link between sleep and aging are showing that getting enough sleep may be one of the best ways to stay healthy and full of energy throughout your life. Researchers have found that good sleep habits are one of the things that all centenarians, people who live to be 100 or older, have in common. As we get closer to the end of our journey through the world of sleep, it's worth noting how amazing it is that this whole complicated process happens on its own every night of your life. You don't have to think about lowering your body temperature, making more growth hormone, turning on your glymphatic system, or putting your memories together. Your body knows how to do all of this and more because of programs that have been written into your DNA over millions of years of evolution. Even though sleep is automatic, it is also very sensitive to what you do and where you are. There are many things that can affect the quality of your sleep. For example, what you eat and when you eat it, how much you exercise and when you exercise, how you deal with stress during the day, how you set up your evening routine, the temperature and lighting in your bedroom, the comfort of your mattress and pillows, and even the thoughts you choose to think as you get ready for bed. One of the best things you can do for your health and well-being is to make sure you have a cool, dark, quiet place to sleep, a regular bedtime routine, limited screen time before bed, comfortable bedding, and a mindset of relaxation and gratitude. These aren't just lifestyle choices, they're ways to work with your body to make one of its most important processes work better. Getting ready for bed at night can be a source of pleasure and mindfulness in and of itself. Taking time to relax, think about what happened during the day, be thankful for the simple miracle of being aware, and get your body and mind ready for the amazing journey of healing that is about to begin can turn bedtime from a necessary break in your daily life into a cherished time of renewal. As you get ready to go to sleep tonight, you can enjoy the amazing biological symphony that is about to start. Your master clock is already controlling the release of melatonin, the gradual cooling of your core temperature, and the slowing down of your heart rate. Your brain is getting ready to go through the stages of NREM sleep, which are very restorative and cleansing, and then REM sleep, which is when you have creative thoughts. Your immune system is getting ready to protect and renew itself while you sleep. Your muscles are getting ready to let go of the stress of the day and fix themselves at night. Your skin is getting ready to make more collagen and new cells. Your liver is getting ready to do its job of detoxifying and keeping your metabolism in check. Every part of your body works together to make this change from being awake to sleeping at night. During the day, your brain is in charge of your conscious experience. At night, it becomes a master restorer, integrator, and healer. Your body will go from being active and responsive to being in a state of deep repair and renewal. When you close your eyes and start to fall asleep, remember that you're not just losing consciousness. You're entering one of the most active, important, and interesting states your body and brain will ever be in. You're joining the billions of other people around the world who are letting their bodies do this old ritual of healing right now. You're taking part in a process that links you to all people who have ever lived, to our evolutionary ancestors, and to the basic rhythms of life on Earth. The circadian patterns that control your sleep are the same ones that have controlled life for billions of years. They connect you to the rotation of our planet and the cycle of day and night that has shaped all life on Earth. Sleep well, knowing that your body is working perfectly while you sleep to restore, fix, and get you ready for tomorrow's adventures. When you wake up in the morning, you'll not only be well rested, but you'll also be completely refreshed. Your brain will be cleaner, your immune system will be stronger, your memories will be integrated, your tissues will be repaired, and your body will be ready for anything that comes your way. Sleep is more than just something you need to do. It's part of the natural rhythm of life, and a nightly reminder of how connected we are to the world and to each other. As you fall asleep tonight, you're taking part in one of the most common human experiences. You are connected to everyone else who has ever closed their eyes and trusted their body's ancient wisdom to keep them safe while they slept. Thank you for spending this quiet hour of discovery with me. Sweet dreams. Until we see each other again in the evening, I hope you have a deep, restful sleep filled with the gentle wisdom of your body's ancient knowledge. When you wake up tomorrow, I hope you feel truly refreshed and have a deeper appreciation for the amazing gift of sleep and the incredible beauty and complexity of the human body at rest.